Are we good? All right. Ashley, would you please call roll?
Absolutely. Representative Allred?
Here.
Representative Andrew?
Here.
Representative Berger?
Here.
Representative Brown?
Here.
Representative Clauston?
Excused.
Representative Lowey?
Excused.
Representative Obermueller?
Here.
Representative Provenza?
Excused. Thank you. Oh,
Chairman Northrup?
I'm here too.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. Excuse me. Still eating. You're faster than I was. Okay. So when we left, we were working on Senate File 86. We had taken public comment and introduced the bill real quickly. And because public comment was done real quickly and we were in a hurry to hurry up and get out of here so we can go home for that, I'm going to open public comment back up and ask if there's anybody in the audience that would like to comment on Senate File 86. Nobody in the audience? Anybody online? Please let Mr. Talon into the room, whatever you want to call it.
Mr. Chairman?
I saw you for a second, then we lost you. There you are, coming.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Please go ahead,
My
Bill.
name is Bill Talon, retired federal law enforcement officer. I'm a firearms trainer and I provide training to armed school staffs under Wyoming Statute 21-3-132. I've been doing that for 5 years now, under contract to 3 of the 5 school districts in Wyoming that currently have those programs. And so my purpose in testimony is to clarify a few issues regarding those programs and then to speak in support of this bill. As you may have seen in the email that I sent to members of the committee, the first thing I wanted to mention was to clarify the status of this bill, Senate File 86, in relation to House Bill 125. It was pointed out in your meeting on Friday that House Bill 125 repeals Wyoming Statute 21-3-132 if it is enacted into law. However, the last amendment that was adopted to HB 125 before it was passed on third reading basically pulled language from 23-132, added it to House Bill 125 specifically to allow Wyoming school districts to maintain or to initiate armed staff programs under very much the same rules as the original statute. So if House Bill 125 is passed in the Senate and enacted into law, it will have no necessary effect on armed staff programs. Districts which choose to either maintain existing programs or to start new programs for armed staff will be able to continue to do so. And therefore, Senate File 86 and the funding provisions that it proposes would still be effective in support of those programs. The only requirement would be that references in Senate File 86 to the old and possibly repealed statute would have to be amended to refer back to HB 125. I hope that's clear enough. That was my understanding from watching the process. So I think Senate File 86 is still entirely pertinent and provides tremendous support to school security in the state. The second point that I wanted to make regarded liability concerns. I've been involved in these programs since they were first proposed in the legislature in 2017. I have seen several districts debate and pass and implement these policies. And in none of our Wyoming districts and nowhere else in the United States where similar programs are in place have liability insurance providers balked at these programs. In fact, they generally welcome the programs in recognition that this level of security actually reduces the likelihood of high claims and settlement costs for the provider. I know in my district here in Cody, the insurance provider did not propose any premium increases and maintained the policy without pause when that program was placed into effect. And as far as I know, that's the case in all of our Wyoming districts. And then the last piece, and I won't take your time now, be happy to answer questions on it, but I did want to address the cost of these school district armed staff programs. And as you can see in detail in my email, it's fairly hard to pin down those costs because the local control provision of 21.3.132 means that the training requirements vary district by district. They're required to meet the minimum requirements in state law, and those minimum requirements are now also carried forward in HB 125. But in my experience, the 3 districts that I work with have all exceeded those state minimums by varying amounts. So the number of hours and therefore the cost for training varies from district to district. But I provided some fairly specific numbers there. And if I can, jump past those specifics to suggest to the committee, right now, the 3 out of 5 districts that I work with, their annual training costs amount to approximately $23,000 to $24,000 a year, just for the annual recurring training for the number of people they have in those programs today. Just a kind of a benchmark figure for you in your considerations. The average cost for those programs in their first year in each given district were on the order of $6,000 to $7,000, covering just training and the ammunition expenditures associated with training. I would point out that our experience with these programs is that when they're first implemented, participation rates are relatively low. 3 to 5 individuals usually when the program is first stood up, and then additional people volunteer later. So, that's that number I gave you, $6,000 to $7,000 per district in the first year, assumes that most districts that began a new program would probably begin a new program at that same level of participation, 3 to 5 individuals. That's a one-time cost. Each individual only participates in that initial training program one time. So that can provide a little bit of a benchmark for the cost of these programs. I do believe that there are many districts in the state that would be very well disposed towards starting this kind of program if they received some funding assistance. And then my last point on this would be that the provision in Senate File 86 to allow other sources of funding, basically funding from the private sector, donations from local communities, grants, gifts, transfers, bequests, and donations. It's a very, very well advised provision. We have found, and again, in my area in Cody, that the school district policy did not cover any costs outside of the initial first year training program. And all of the other associated costs became the responsibility of the participant. And those costs amount to $2,000, $3,000 or more every year, which is a great disincentive to participation for people on average school district salaries. So what has happened in Cody is a local nonprofit has stood up, a 501c3, that solicits donations from within the local community and then disperses those funds to offset some of those out-of-pocket expenses. So in districts which approve of these programs and put them in place, there's usually a pretty high level of community support. And I would imagine that the funding provided by the state under this bill probably would be augmented by private and local sources. And then my last comment, and I'll stand for questions, is that in my opinion, these armed school staff programs in the 3 districts where I perform training, and in the other 2 districts that receive training through their local sheriff's offices, these programs have been, without exception, extremely successful. There have been no shootings, no incidents, no accidents, no negative impacts whatsoever. And they provided a great deal of security to the school districts that have enacted them. That picture is now looking like it's going to change if HB 125 is passed. as I said before, it does not limit or restrict these school district programs, which will still be available and still possible. But it also allows concealed carry by any Wyoming citizen with a Wyoming concealed carry permit. Those two programs, in my opinion, will be complementary and mutually supporting. Neither one of them will operate in exclusion. And I think that that's going to improve our school safety and security across the state. And I very much appreciate the fact that Representative Harrelson offered that amendment before his bill was passed, because these two programs in conjunction will be a very good thing for the state. And that concludes my comments. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Is there questions for Mr. Talon? So Bill, when initially you said there was $23,000 to $24,000 cost. Is that for each district or is that a cumulative?
No, that would be cumulative for the 5 districts with programs in place right now. And I'm making assumptions there because the 2 districts that I do not work with, I'm not exactly sure of their costs or their accounting procedures. So what I did was I calculated the average cost among the 3 districts that I work with, extended that to the other 2 districts just to give us a ballpark figure. That would be $23,000 to $24,000 a year for everyone who is currently enrolled in these programs in all 5 districts.
Okay, thank you, sir. Further questions for Mr. Talon? Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kolb, would you like to come up and help us work the bill?
Yes, I do.
There's a few questions that were left as we were walking out. So as we started out, the bill had this language about repealing 21.3.132 in 125. And you pointed that out to me just as we were walking to lunch. Would you like to expound on that more than Mr. Talon has?
Mr. Chairman Northup, yes, I can further expound by saying House Bill 125, page 7, on line 3 and line 16, removed 21.3.132 as a reference.
Okay.
So it would seem like they're not in conflict, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I see that it's clear and they can stand by themselves. It was a good question because it was valid at one point, but I see now that it's, I don't see a need for addressing it right now. And if something does come up on the floor, I have some other members that would be willing to run a second reading amendment on it to clean it up and to take care of anything that may come up. Just to get this thing out of committee today. But the way it reads now, it looks like it's clear and clean and it can stand by themselves. That I haven't run this by the LSO, obviously. I haven't had a chance. But that is my belief. And Mr. Chairman, I look forward to any questions from the committee if we have a conversation about this, if there is an issue.
Okay. Is there questions from committee? Okay, committee, what's your pleasure on the bill? Moved by Allred.
Second.
Seconded by Raleigh. Okay, now then, anybody have any amendments or anything you would like to talk about on page 1? Page 2? I have a proposed amendment that I'd like to work into page 2 and 3, and it really is just a CYA. On line 17 of page 2, at the end of property, and say by school district employees in accordance with the law. And that way, that kind of cleans up the 132 issue in there and puts it back into the school district employees. And then on page 3, where again, on line 3, where Wyoming statute 21.3-132 is again referenced, and just say in accordance with the law.
Second.
Any discussion? Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. We've added that language. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add, subtract, or talk about? Representative Berger, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'm looking at page 3, line 23.
And I'm thinking about, there's what, 49 school districts, correct?
With the charter schools.
With the charter schools. I was thinking
Kind of like 48, but
48, instead of having that $100,000 appropriation, I was thinking going to 480,000 or 490,000, where we decide there, and thinking $10,000 per school district. That's what I'm thinking right now. I would like to make that motion.
Then move it.
And move that
Okay,
motion,
I'll second that.
okay?
okay, discussion on that?
And discussion. Can I talk to Senator Kolb?
Certainly.
Senator Kolb, what do you think about that?
Go ahead.
Chairman Northup, Representative Berger, I'm fine with it. I think we
Yeah.
do have to have a program large enough or
So do
complete
I.
enough to supply training to folks that may request it. And if we can readjust it later, if we find out it's too much, or if it's too little.
Yeah,
But-
and Mr. Chairman
Go ahead, follow up.
and Senator, with the questions or the answers I got with liability and everything, with what we can spend this on, from safes to training is huge, safety, right? I think helping those districts out and seeing that we can do that, I think 10,000 would be great for each district.
Representative Obermiller, you have more comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be a no vote strictly on the basis of the fact that we're already running a deficit in the House. This adds to that deficit position. We don't have the money in this current budget unless there's some kind of offset to this. Even though I like the idea, I just don't think the money's there.
Okay, question being called. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
That motion's passed.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Representative Brown.
I'd move on that same line. Thank you, yeah. I usually don't do that. Mr. Chairman, I would move striking school foundation program on page 3, line 23, and inserting general fund. And that's my motion. Everything else should stay the same.
Second, somebody? Second. All right,
Mr.
moved
Chairman.
by Brown, seconded by Berger. Go ahead.
Just a brief explanation as to why. I totally understand the process of doing it out of school foundation account. My biggest concern is, as it stands right now, we are backfilling $20 million with the LISRA, which is general fund already. When we walked in here, we had a $200 million surplus coming into the school foundation account. As it stands right now, that is going to be underwater by an additional $20 million. We have the money in our general fund, and I do feel as if we're going to be putting money into this. And again, now that we've moved it from $100,000 to, $500,000, I certainly think this is a more appropriate place to pull the money from, is the general fund. And I would also venture to say that if we tried to pull money from the school foundation account as we go to appropriations, it will probably get yanked completely if we did that. So this is a little bit of a lifeline for it.
Further questions, comments? Go ahead, Representative Berger.
Yeah, I just was wondering too, the question I have is, will this money, do we need to direct this money, 10,000 for each district? We don't need to, okay, thanks.
Thank you. Question on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion's passed. Further motions? None appearing, we'll proceed to vote on the bill.
Could I make a statement first?
Certainly may, you may make a statement.
Thank you. I just need, it has to be publicly said that I support the idea, but I cannot support this level of appropriation. It just simply not responsible, given the deficit spending we're already in on the House side.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Representative Brown.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My only thought on, I almost looked past this, but I do see that as we go down, page 4, it is the intent of the legislature that this appropriation shall be included in the Department of Education standard budget. Do we think, and Senator Colby, I'm looking at you on this one, do you think that including $500,000 every single year is what's needed, or should we massage that language as well?
Go ahead, Senator Coe.
Chairman Northrop, Representative Brown, that's why I was kind of good with the 100,000 to begin with,
Okay.
because it wasn't going to blow up and we don't really know the total appropriation needed. Like, we don't know who's going to use it. So I thought we'd keep it reasonable, start at a low point, see what type of buy-in we get, and we come back during another time legislatively and add money to the account if we need it. That's the reason why it was set like that. So obviously now we're talking about a different thing, a lot more money. And I mean, at this level of funding, frankly, I mean, it's a different question. Is it a one-time appropriation at this level of funding to see how much we use? Maybe, that's the question at hand.
Yeah.
Chairman Northrop, Representative Brown, I think it's up to you. It's been changed. So I'm going to use your best judgment, how we can get this thing to move it through the process.
Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll make another motion. On page 4, line 6, after shall, insert the word not. That's the motion. So all it'll say, Mr. Chairman, is it is the intent of the legislature that this appropriation shall not be included in the Department of Education standard budget for the immediately succeeding fiscal biennium. Instead of saying that it should be, I think, as the good senator just mentioned, I think we're given a good chunk of money up front. Let's see what that does. I don't think we're going to spend through it in the biennium. And if we do, okay, then we've got good news, right? We're taking care of it. And we can have that discussion, but I don't think building it into the standard budget is the proper way to do it.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Allred. Moved by Brown, seconded by Allred, that we add the word not after shall on line 6, page 4.
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, one-time expenditure.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you. Any other amendments? None appearing, will proceed to vote. Ashley, would you call a roll?
Mr. Chairman, on Senate File 86, school safety and security funding do pass with amendments. Representative Allred?
Aye.
Representative Andrew? Representative Berger?
Aye.
Representative Brown?
Aye.
Representative Clausen has left an absentee vote of aye. Representative Lawley?
Aye.
Representative Obermueller?
No.
Representative Provenza has left an absentee vote of no. Chairman Northrop?
Aye.
7 aye, 2 no.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay, we're off to Senate File 128.
Real quick, Mr. Chairman, can I get some clarification on the appropriation? What
Go
is
ahead.
the exact dollar amount now?
$480,000.
Thank you.
Senator Dockstetter. Welcome to House Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. Appreciate you hearing this bill. We've been working on this most recently because of some changes that come about in one of our communities. Senate File 128, approval of charter schools, and we amended it on the other side of the building to actually use the plural language because we're increasing the number of charter schools and coordinating it all through the Wyoming Charter School Authority Board. And members of the committee, in this particular community, we've been looking for ways to address the growth. So over on the west side, if we move to the north, those schools are full. North of the canyon there, the Snake River Canyon. If you move down south and we use the process, the Mercer study, that could be 6 to 8 years out to get a school. The community is ready to move something forward, and they've been working as a group. When I say as a group, they formed this charter school committee and actually were sworn in at a town council meeting. I said, I don't know that you need to be sworn in for this, but that's what they did. And the mayor felt like it was a thing to do and make it all official and put them on record. So they formed this charter school committee in this community. We can't really say specific, we can't do legislation specific to a community, but they are ready to go just as 2 other communities are ready to go with this. And so they've been meeting and planning, and felt like this would be a route to go, to put everything in place and get lined up. So we made the changes committee to, from 2 to 3. And then the key part is we moved the date up. We changed the date to go from the original language that had it out there in 2026, we moved it back to 2024. This is a rapidly changing area, folks. A new school is probably in the future in some form or fashion. I feel this route with a charter school would be maybe the route that would be best to go. And so I brought the legislation that would fit their work. The avenue is opened up for this community to perhaps do this. When I say the avenue's opened up, probably the funding too. The funding's in the early stages, but there is every indication that we have a person that'll make the donation to actually build the brick and mortar, build the school. We have to come together and put the rest of it together. So with that, committee, I bring you Senate File 128, approval of charter schools. We've moved the date up. We've changed the number from 1 to 3, and we've moved the date up to be effective at an earlier time because we're ready to go. We're ready to get this done, and we see that this is the avenue that we could do this with. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I stand for your questions and ask for your approval on this. We've got a group of people working very hard to bring this together. A lot of meetings, a lot of effort going into this. Even a member of our regular school board helping to assist with this too in this particular committee to make sure that we have the funding in place and that we make sure that all the avenues are open for them to proceed with this project. We'll need your help to get it done though, sir.
Questions for Senator Dockstader? Go ahead, Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Dockstader, just out of curiosity, so we passed the bill last year, put that out there. Out of curiosity, when did you guys start having these discussions about bringing in a charter school or, because I recognize the plight of Alpine, most certainly, the size of the town, not having a school there. When did the discussion start?
Past year and.
Go ahead, Senator Dockstader.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This past year, I set up a meeting for them to meet with the school district to look at those avenues to see if that was a possibility. So we looked at the Mercer and the numbers that came together with that. We said, well, maybe 6 to 8 years. Would there be an avenue to send more kids to the north to that school? I've met with that superintendent there as we look at school expansion there, and they said, no more up here, please. We're trying to get this original school built through what we call the Bronx Center. And so this discussion started centering on a charter school. And why that, Mr. Chairman, is we had someone come forth and say, well, we could probably build this for you. We could get this done for you. And so the meeting started from there. And then that led to a committee being formed, sworn in to work on this more specifically and to get the job done. This was the route that, after meeting with the public schools, talking about it in both directions, this seemed like the route that was most feasible to begin with. Mr. Chairman, we've got a rapidly growing area over there. And will it have families? I suspect they will. But one of the key things to make a community whole is a school, as we well know. So many things happen around a school, so we put this together.
Follow up on that, Mr.
Go
Chairman.
ahead, follow up.
Senator Dockstader, so I'm going to ask kind of a snarky comment, so please don't take it personally or anything along those lines, but legitimately changing statute was the easiest course of action for getting a charter school instituted? I mean, what was the naysayers from the local school district?
Go ahead,
Mr. Chairman?
go ahead, Senator.
My last question to our school district, our administration was, is there an avenue through you? Are you opposed to me doing this? And the answer was no. Do what you can and work with it how you can. Mr. Chairman, I worked through the public school system first.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, follow on that. Why did they choose to not allow the charter underneath their existing LEA structure?
Mr. Chairman, they have an existing system, but the Mercer study puts them 6 to 8 years out if we were to try to do this through the public schools, or go through, if it was done in the school district where they go for approval. So that's an option as well, but the community in this group said, let's go through the Wyoming Charter School Authority now that we have it in place. And if I could add, Mr. Chairman, that we've had a member that school authority helping us sort out and attend the meetings, because we have to, this is kind of new territory for everybody, and we have to get it right.
Okay, Representative Obermiller, you have a question, comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Senator, in the original charter school bill, there was one charter school, an additional charter school authorized under that bill. Did you apply for that one extra school, or what did you do with that part of that authorization?
Mr. Chairman, there were two in the, from as I recall us working on the system, there were two in the system, and I brought one forth, and then the chairman of our education committee on the other side said, let's include them all and have three. And so thus the amendment. We have, Mr. Chairman, we have schools that are ready. I might suggest that where we have a person who's willing to donate and construct, we may be a little further ahead than some of the others. That's just projection at my point, though, at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on that, so how does that part work when they agree to build a facility? Is it, does the state design a facility, come up with the cost and the specifications, and this person just builds it and turns it over to the state? Or how does that work?
Your answer, Senator?
Mr. Chairman, as I understand it, and I don't say that I'm an expert on this, they can build it and donate. It's my understanding that they don't have to necessarily say the school is designed in this particular order. But that's why we're going to continue working through the Wyoming Charter School Authority to get this right.
I was just going to ask the chairman of the committee to
Yeah.
expound on that, if he would, please.
So the senator is correct. That's one option. The other option is very similar to what has happened in the other two schools, and then what you guys saw in the budget amendment process. We put $2 million in for charter school leasing. So here in Laramie County, the charter school, the company came in and purchased an old church. They're renovating it. They're doing all of that. And then they are going to lease out that building to the state. So the state is then required to pay that lease, and that is dictated in statute. It has to be on the average price per square foot for commercial lease in the vicinity. And so that's where those numbers that we all voted on in the budget come from. So over there, it would be very similar. If they chose to lease it, they could lease it. They could donate it. That's if the state of Wyoming chose to accept it as a liability on their balance sheet, basically. So those are the two options.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of Facilities. Any other questions for Senator Dockstader on charter school bill? Anybody? We can take public comment.
Oh, I see.
Anybody have public comment on the bill? Department first if you want. Nothing? You're good, Jeff. Please come forward.
It's that dignity we told you to check at the door. Man. I'm telling you.
Mr. Chairman.
Please go ahead. Make sure your mic's turned on. And remember to state your name for the
Thank you.
record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Doherty. I'm here on behalf of the town of Alpine, and I want to start really quickly. I'll be brief with my comments, Mr. Chairman, but I want to start with an expression of gratitude. First of all, the senator over there has been an astonishing resource to the community for trying to help these kiddos and this community get a school. And I also want to express gratitude to this committee. I know a lot of you have listened to me a few times over the past several weeks, and I really feel heard, and I appreciate you listening to me describe the various issues that this community is facing. So with that, as I said, Mr. Chairman, I'm here on behalf of the town of Alpine. For those of you who don't know, I do have some background in education, mainly on the operations side. You know, constructing schools throughout the state has been one of my tasks over the years. And I would ask you to I would respectfully request that you support this bill today. A little bit of background. One, as the senator indicated, this is a fast-growing community. And to my knowledge, this is the only community of its size that doesn't have educational assets like this. And part of my job over the years has been to make sure that our kiddos have the right spaces to learn in. And right now, a lot of them are having to spend quite a bit of time on the road, on a bus, getting back and forth to the schools that are available to them at present. And while that's a normal thing for Wyoming, Mr. Chairman, you start adding it up and it's an hour or two a day, and that's 5 to 10 hours a week, and it adds up, and that's time those kiddos are away from their families. And I'll tell you, my kids grew up with lengthy commutes to school in Wyoming, and none of them joined street gangs, so that was a good thing. But we do want to try to keep them, to the extent possible, close to their communities and close to their families. As the senator indicated, the mayor and council did retain me to try to help. I want to let you know that there are 2 paths that this community is exploring right now. Number 1 is the charter school path that's opened if this bill is able to pass this committee and ultimately the floor. And the other one is a public school process. As the senator indicated, they are presently engaged in a Mercer process right now. So I'm willing to support them in that effort as well, Mr. Chairman. I would say that the community understands that upon the passage of this bill, they're not guaranteed this school. It's going to be up to the Charter School Authorizing Board, and it's going to be based on the strength of the application that this community makes in comparison to the strength of the application that other applicants may make. But presently, they don't have that option to move forward with that. So that's why we're here today. As the senator indicated, we're also here because we want to capitalize on opportunities that are potentially available within the community to try to move forward a building, if possible, under the charter school path. And as this committee knows, that traditional K-12s aren't always the best option for all of our kiddos. And so it's nice that parents have options out there for the young people. So, Mr. Chairman, without restating a lot of the points that the good senator made, I'll just conclude with this. When I was building schools for the state for part of my career, one of the things I used to remind my staff of is, look, we don't just build buildings. Right? We change lives. And the reason we change lives is because we create the spaces that these kiddos need to become successful. Because back when I was a kid, and this whole committee's younger than me, but back when I was young, it was a very industrial style education. And today we need an education that fits all of our kiddos and is dynamic and is able to create opportunities for them, because that's what drives lifelong happiness for them. It allows them to get into better colleges, better career technical programs and other things as well. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I told you I would be brief, so I'm going to conclude my comments there and stand for any questions you may have.
Questions for Mr. Doherty? Nothing from the chairman of?
Yeah, just a brief question. Jeff, you and I have talked about this bill since beginning of session. I am curious right now, and I should have asked the senator this, but right now your 2 options for schooling for kids in Alpine are what?
Go ahead, Mr. Doherty.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative Brown. The two options are to go through a Mercer process and identify the solution that may include a new structure in Alpine. It may include, as you know, Mr. Representative Brown, those Mercer processes ask you to come up with a list of preferred alternatives, and then the school board votes on that, and then the Facilities Commission acts further on that. So the community certainly has some opinions about what they'd like to see the traditional solution to be, but ultimately that process is defined through the Mercer process, and those outcomes are finalized through that process. But they do have ideas. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Go ahead, follow up.
And where are the students going to school at right now? If we don't build this school and they're stuck in limbo, where do they go to school?
Go ahead, Mr. Doherty.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Brown, the good news is they are not stuck in limbo. They, some of them will attend in Etna, Mr. Chairman, or Representative Brown, as they get older. I think that school in Etna, and forgive me, I think I'm right, but I'm not exactly certain, but I think the school in Etna is a K4. I think some members of the community would like to see that move to a K6. But as they get older, then they've got to go into Afton in order to satisfy their secondary needs.
I have another question for the senator, Mr. Chairman, but we can wait.
Okay. So you're, Mr. Doherty, you're saying that Afton is a K-12 school?
Mr. Chairman,
Please
thank
go
you.
ahead.
No, what I'm saying is that within Afton, they have the junior high and high school schools. So the kiddos, the younger kiddos would attend in Etna or Thane. And then as they get older into that 7, 8 through 12 age group, then they would finish their education at one of those two facilities that are presently in the Afton area. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it does. Anybody else have questions for the good Mr. Doherty? Anybody? You're off the hook. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? Public input. We have 3 chairs, so you can fill them up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the
afternoon.
committee. I'm Ken DeCary. I work for the Wyoming School Boards Association, and we stand in opposition to this for a few reasons. And Mr. Chairman, one of the first things I guess I'd like to say is, the Mercer study, it sounds like what they're talking about is not opening a charter school there. They're talking about opening a new school in the district, which would require that you do a Mercer study and that you build a new building. If they went through the local school board and opened a school that way, a charter school, there are charter schools here and in Laramie. I mean, one of the ones in Laramie was in an old Walmart building. I mean, so that wasn't that they had to build a building in order to meet the charter school process. So I think there's actually 3 routes here. And they're looking at one would be just to expand their district with another school, or going through this independent authorizer, but I don't think they're really looking at having the school board authorize a charter school. And Mr. Chairman, some of our opposition to this, one of this, is this original legislation was supposed to be a look to see how these charter schools would work. We were going to give it a few years. We were going to see how they worked, what were the problems. And Mr. Chairman, I think anybody that's been around the legislature, you've seen that we're still building this airplane while we're flying it. I mean, every year that we've had since, we've had corrections to fix the legislation that wasn't right. And we also, the other part of that is we wanted to see how they did academically. I mean, so there were other pieces to do this instead of just opening new schools. Mr. Chairman, I think one thing we found out very quickly, and originally, I know you remember the testimony, but it said that this will add no additional cost to school funding. But Mr. Chairman, this has been the single biggest escalator for school funding since this passed. Because, Mr. Chairman, the original people who said that, they didn't understand how school funding works. We don't fund on a per pupil basis. I mean, we get a figure on a per pupil basis, but we fund on a school basis. So every time you open a school, it's going to add additional cost. And Mr. Chairman, these original 3 added, I believe the original figure was 12 million. I don't know where it sits now, but there's only 2 of the 3 that are open right now. So, Mr. Chairman, they still have that. And Mr. Chairman, the other thing about this independent authorizer, it just seems to me that the legislature used to be more prone to entrust locally elected officials with making decisions than appointed a board to make decisions when it comes, especially that we know it's going to increase cost. So I mean, we've added another layer that we want to do this. And Mr. Chairman, with some of the things that are happening in the Senate right now with this charter school board, my understanding is there's a couple people there that are not going to be confirmed, and that just makes me think that they must want it to be just really easy. We might want to rubber stamp this with some of these people. If you're going to be sort of somewhat independent, we don't want you to question what's going on this board. We just want you to approve these schools, and that's what it is. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if that's really true, but I have that fear. Mr. Chairman, the other thing is this went from 1 to 3. And Mr. Chairman, I think you could almost make a case that this is special legislation. I mean, we know what building we're talking about, so we're going to pass a law for one particular place. That sounds pretty specialized to me, that's what we're doing, and if it would to go to the regular process, it would go forward. I mean, there might be other schools in there that want that one slot. And so it sounds to me like they've already made the decision that this is a done deal and this one's going to be approved, which would lead me to think that maybe, this might fall into some constitutional problems with the nature of that. So, Mr. Chairman, with those reservations, we just have some problems. We think, there is another method. They could go to their local school district in order to get that. It sounds like they're amiable to doing that, and that process. And I don't think it would take 6 to 8 years, but Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't say that I'm a world expert in that area. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeCarria. Representative Obermuller, you have a question? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So is there any difference in the funding model if it's approved by the local school board as opposed to approved by the state charter school board?
Go ahead, Mr. DeCarria.
Mr. Chairman, no, I mean, they're both become public schools. What would happen if it was in a local school district, they would have some of the mechanisms already in place to help that school district exist, like special services, transportation. That school district already has some of those things in place. That was one of the fixes, is to make, and it's going through this session, to make them their own local education agencies so that they can do some of those things on their own, that they don't have to have a school district do it. And so the funding really, it doesn't really change much. I mean, it would be the same as a per pupil funding, again, put through a formula that does it by a building, and so the funding would be the same.
Further questions for Mr. DeCarria? Anybody? Thank you, sir. We appreciate your
Thank you.
input.
Members of the committee.
Please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Ron Sniffen. I'm with the Wyoming Education Association. We too are here before you to request a no vote on this bill. As I recall, when this committee first passed the original charter bill legislation, it was to develop a comprehensive understanding of the impact that charter schools would have on the school foundation program, capital construction, and also to learn how charter schools would impact rural communities. The intent was also to test the claims that charter schools students outperform their district counterparts. It was also to see the impact on special education students in those schools. The charter school bill was intended to explore other options, but explore them slowly and carefully. We ask that you let the original intent of the charter school bill legislation play out. We have yet to see a report on the results of the original 3 charter schools that were authorized. It's premature to increase the charter school number of schools outside of school districts. As Mr. DeCarria said, there's a mechanism already in place to go before the local school boards to have a charter school authorized in a school district. We ask that you adhere to the legislation that's already in place and reject this bill, and I'm willing to answer any questions if I can.
Questions for Mr. Sniffen? Oh, Representative Provenza, please go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Sniffen, have we received any reports, just to be clear, have we received any data whatsoever that tells us how how charter schools have impacted public schools or our communities?
To my
Go ahead,
understanding,
Mr. Sniffen.
Mr. Chairman, to my understanding, we have not.
Further questions? Further questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to have public input? Anybody on Zoom? Question? You have a question for whom?
For the department.
And I think we have a question for Senator Dockstetter too, so.
I actually got it answered.
Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, go ahead, Representative Berger.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Wanda, it's good to see you, Maloney. Ms. Maloney, back to kind of Representative Brown's comment, or maybe Mr. DeCarria's comment. Where are we at on charter school funding? Are we over 12 million? Where are we at on that number?
Please go ahead, Ms. Wanda
With the,
Maloney.
Correct. Mr. Chairman, I'll just introduce
12.
myself, Wanda Maloney with the Department of Education.
Yeah.
Representative Berger. So we do not have that report done. The 3 charter schools were just authorized. And so we're still in the process of looking at the impact of those 3 charter schools. And so they are in the very beginning stages of opening. I guess if I could clarify what particular information you needed from the department?
Follow up?
I guess, Mr. Chairman and Ms. Maloney, how much is it costing us more as a state? Is it saving us money to have charter schools? Are we, where's the impact on ADM in other school districts?
Chairman Northrup and Representative Berger, I don't think we have that information at this time. We will have that, but I think like I said, we're in the very beginning of opening it, and we have 2 of the 3 that have opened. The 3rd is deferred, and so they're actually not even opened yet.
Further questions for Ms. Maloney? Thank you. Further questions from the committee before we go? All right, we're going to close public comment. What's your pleasure on the bill?
Okay. I said move it earlier. So you got the move in the second right here.
Okay, moved by, I'm going to give it to Allred and seconded by Andrew. Okay, any amendments? Any amendments, page 1? Page 2? Anybody? Before we move to page 2, I'll make a motion, not that it's kosher, but I'll do it anyway. I'll strike out of line 18, 3 additional charter schools and take it back to the original language of 1 charter school. That's my motion.
Second.
Moved and second, discussion. Page 2, line 18.
And I would say conforming.
And conforming language, yeah, because it's got to be cleaned up.
Page 3, line.
Well, and it goes from charter school to schools and
Yeah.
all the, basically strip the standing committee amendment from the Senate side, Mr. Chairman.
Correct.
Chairman?
Representative Berger.
I guess my question is, going to 1, doesn't that make this bill now more just focused on one area and kind of a special? Okay, all right, we'll leave it.
Further questions on the amendment? None appearing, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion's passed. Further motion, anybody else have anything else on the bill? Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I just have discussion.
Discussion, go ahead.
Does it shock you, Mr. Chairman, that I want to talk? Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the plight. I truly do. I'm sitting here, I wrote the word compromise in the middle of my sheet here, trying to take the pros and the cons of what happened here. And I see that we have a growing community. As the chairman of the committee that handles all of this building across the state, I'll be the first one to tell you, our state sucks at building schools fast. And it's not a fun committee to be in front of. And I can tell you through executive session this morning, it was not a fun committee to be in front of, right? So when building a school becomes the biggest issue of, or one of the biggest issues of our entire state budget, it's when you know we're doing something wrong, right? We're putting the kids out, and that's the tough part. I do also see that this is a local issue, right? And that's why I asked the very pointed question of whether or not this is the easiest way to do something is to go in and change statute or session law and run it through and try to convince 92 other people that this is the best way to do it. But on the opposite side, I see the concerns from what we started on this process last year. I sat through every single meeting with that term compromise and tried to get both sides to see the argument. We have not seen a fiscal impact of what those additional 3 charter schools that we've already started. We have no idea what that looks like. We have absolutely no idea what the student impact looks like. And we have the concern, I didn't even think about this until it was brought up, the potential that this could be shown as special legislation, right? We have, the compromise was to bring 1 charter school in 25, I believe. It's 25 or 26. I'm comfortable with that. That was where we walked away last year on an understanding of we all need to be here and we all need to be understanding that this is going to cost us some money and we need to know what that looks like first. So I will be voting no on this particular bill. But it's not to say that I don't understand the plight. And I certainly do, but I think that we really need to understand what we've done prior to us just opening up the floodgates yet again. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further questions or comments from the committee? None appearing. We'll proceed to vote. Ashley, would you call a roll, please?
Mr. Chairman, on Senate File 128, approval of charter school do pass with amendments. Representative Allred. Aye. Representative Andrew. Aye. Representative Berger.
No.
Representative Brown. No. Representative Claston.
No.
Representative Lawley.
Aye.
Representative Obermuller.
No.
Representative Provenza. No. Chairman Northrup. No. 3 aye, 6 no.
Committee, I'd remind you that Wednesday we're going to be doing interim topics. We're in a little bit of, thank you, Senator. We have a little competition with, as I recall, minerals. But yes, there's a good chairman over there, is right. So we have a little bit of work to do getting that list put together, and we'll see if we can get it narrowed down and pared down.
Can we talk about charter schools?
It's,
Is there a report?
Ashley, could you repeat that?